my presentation is on target wake time. So this is supposedly the best battery feature, but till date, nobody uses it. So my presentation is about why that happened to be the case. Now, as you know, this feature was introduced as part of Wi-Fi 6. So we are currently in Wi-Fi 7, and still there is no change. Wi-Fi 8, whether there will be any change, we'll have to wait and see. But I want to throw some light into some history, and then why this could have been the best, and then why it is not being used. So hopefully the idea is some changes can happen out of creating this awareness, and people could, in future, make those minor edits and make this feature really useful. So first of all, what are the pain points of battery-powered Wi-Fi clients? First pain point is there is collisions, because this is a shared contended medium, and each collision wastes energy. So it wastes airtime, that is one factor, but more important than that, this presentation we are focusing on the battery life. So you are wasting the client's energy, the battery is being wasted. Second problem is there is unbounded listen time to retrieve the buffered downlink frames. So obviously AP buffers frames for the clients in PowerSave. So when it wakes up, it wants those buffered frames to be delivered. Now the problem is, first thing is, the client does not know how many buffered frames are there. This is a problem, fundamental limitation in Wi-Fi today. We don't know, actually, with 7 generations of Wi-Fi, we still don't know how many buffered frames are there. Okay. Second thing is, when you wake up, when the AP will start delivering it, we don't know. Then let's say I have 10 buffered frames. So when will those 10 be delivered to me? Will it be delivered all at one go, or 3 will be delivered, then the AP will serve another client, then another 3, the AP will serve another client, another 3. So, and there may be multiple access points in the same channel. So you don't know actually how long you have to stay awake to retrieve all these frames. This is second problem. Third problem is, to know whether there is any buffered frame for me, right now you have to wake up, hear a beacon, and then there will be some TIM element where you have to go and see, just to know if there is frame for me. And then you have to wake up again to go and retrieve it. So this is a third problem. So this is all the pain points. So the dream of the battery-powered Wi-Fi clients has been to have a scheduled service period. So give me a time slot when I wake up and the AP delivers frames for me, right? So if every client has such a time slot, right, pretty much like a TDMA, I'm basically saying we need like a TDMA solution, then we can get the best battery life performance. So let's briefly talk about how PowerSave was before Wi-Fi 6 came, right, before the TWT. So as you know, I mean, most of you may know, if the client wants to go to sleep, it has to first indicate to the AP that it is going to sleep by setting this power management bit in the any uplink frame, right, frame control field, and it enters PowerSave. Now this doesn't mean client goes to sleep, it actually means that, okay, pause any downlink, right? So it starts buffering, right? Then the AP starts buffering all the unicast downlink, and then if there are any buffered frames, the AP will indicate it in the beacon traffic indication map element by listing the AAD of the client. So every client is assigned the AAD during association. And this is one way. Another way is in all the downlink frames that the AP sends, there is a more data bit field. So that bit also will be set. So there are two ways a client will know that there are buffered frames for it. One is by looking at its AAD in the beacon. The other way is by, if you see that more data bit set in the downlink frames, that's another way you can know that. And during association, the client has to also advertise something called the listen interval. Basically, it has to tell the AP, if at all I go to sleep, I will check for the beacon, every 2 beacons or every 3 beacons. So listen interval is something that the client determines. And on top of it, there is broadcast and multicast frames. So these broadcast and multicast frames, those status are advertised only in certain beacons, not all the beacons, and that is every DTIM period. That is decided by the AP. So client is expected to wake up for the DTIM beacon, and if there is any multicast or broadcast range, that bit will be set, and then immediately following the DTIM beacon, the broadcast and multicast frames are delivered. Because we can't have different schedules for broadcast frames, right? Because it's broadcast. So this is the agreement between the AP and the clients. Now the problem here is, so client wakes up, it for the DTIM beacon, it retrieves all the broadcast and multicast packets, right? And then it wakes up every listen interval, right? And then here it is 2 beacons. So every 2 beacons it wakes up to know if there is any frames for it. And let's say somewhere in this beacon, the AB lists the AID of the client. So at this point, somewhere around here, maybe some downlink frames came. So the AP lists that. But the client doesn't see this beacon, right? Because the client will see every 2 beacons. So it knows of it only in this beacon. And then it tries to retrieve it. So it tries to retrieve the buffered unicast frames. Now there are multiple ways of retrieval. I will go through some of the ways. But the problem is, there are multiple clients in the network. So there may be like 50, 60 clients. Another client like this might be having retrieve buffered, have buffered frames at the same time. So that client also will wake up at that time, and then it will try to retrieve. So when these 2 clients try to retrieve, there will be obviously collisions, and then AP will have to kind of serve some frames for station 1, some frames for station 2. And remember, there may be a lot of clients out of power save, not in power save. So AP has to serve them also, right? You can't be like, just because you wake up now, okay, you get all the service, and all the people who are awake, they don't get anything. It can't be that. So this is a problem. So this is what creates the unbounded listen time, right? So you don't know when, because you're going to spend time wasting energy receiving frames not meant for you, right? I don't mind spending energy to retrieve my frames, but I don't want to spend time retrieving frames meant for somebody else. So this is the problem. Now, there are 3 ways to retrieve the buffered frames. There are actually more than 3 ways in the standard. In practice today, we have mainly 3 mechanisms. One is the just exit power save. So just come out of power save. So you can send any uplink frame, set the power management bit to 0. So this is that power management bit I was talking about. So this is in the frame control field, and then this is the more data bit that you see in the frame control, right? And this can be in any frame, by the way. Even ACK frames you can indicate. And then this is first mechanism. So you exit power save. But just because you exit power save doesn't mean AP has to immediately serve you. AP has lots of other clients to serve. So the problem is AP schedules per its own priorities. So this is one problem. Then we have another mechanism, is the PS poll mechanism. So in this, client can send a PS poll saying, okay, I'm ready to receive 1 frame now, and then the AP will just deliver 1 frame. So in this mechanism, client can remain in power save and keep retrieving frames. That option is there. But look at this now. To retrieve 1 frame, I have to transmit 1 frame. So this is not actually a good use of energy, because usually transmitting consumes more energy than receiving. So PS poll is one mechanism. And then the third mechanism, we have unscheduled power save delivery mechanism. So in here, the client sends what is called a UAPST trigger frame, which is nothing but any uplink QoS frame, which you have to define what is a trigger frame, what kind of QoS TID will act as the UAPST trigger. Client has to define during association. And then that will start an unscheduled service period. And during that unscheduled service period, the AP will deliver multiple frames. It can deliver multiple frames up to a parameter called max XP length. Again, this is
negotiated during association time itself. You know what is the max XP-len. And then at the end of that service period, there is a end of service period indication in the delivered frame. So these are mainly three mechanisms, okay, that we have. There are more, as I said, but in use, we have only three. But all three mechanisms share all the problems I mentioned. So they have longer wake duration than required to retrieve all the buffered frames, reasons, collisions, and the AP serving other clients, right? And as I was saying, right, AP has to, since it has to serve other clients, it serves some frames for one client, some frames for other client. So one of the clients, or each client has to somehow waste energy receiving frames not meant for it. So, and because of it, it's hard for the client to plan its wake duration. That is, when it is wake, how long it should be. And there's no way to like selectively wake only for your frames and not for other frames, right? And it, as I said, it does not know how much buffer traffic exists. This is a fundamental limitation even till Wi-Fi 7. I think even in 8, I don't see anything addressing it. And when it will be served. So these are all problems, right, with before Wi-Fi 6. Now, target wake time. So Wi-Fi 6 brought this feature. So the idea here was to go to the TDMA style or have a reserved time when the client will be served, and the client need not wake up during other time, just go wake up there, retrieve your frames, and then go back to sleep. That was the idea. So there are two ways you can enter into an agreement, basically like an appointment. You set up an appointment with the AP, and then you show up at that time and get your downlink frames. So for that, you have to first enter into an agreement, right? So the two types of agreement, individual and broadcast. So in the individual, you have to set up, send a TW setup frame, and then you can request a certain set of TW parameters, or you can suggest it, or you can demand it, that you just need it. And the AP will respond with another TW setup frame where it can either accept that request, or it can suggest a different set of parameters by saying alternate, or it can just reject it. So these are the possibilities. But if it accepts, it will assign what is called a flow ID, and then it will give this TWT element. These four parameters constitute the TWT element. First is target wake time. This is basically telling when the client is supposed to wake up, okay, or when the service period begins. The second one is wake interval. This is split into two parameters. One is a mantissa component and there's an exponent component, right? Basically, it's expressed in the scientific notation, mantissa into 2 power some exponent. So wake interval describes the time duration between one service period and the next service period. And then the third parameter is the minimum wake duration. This is basically the duration of the wake, like how long minimum the client has to be awake. Then fourth parameter is the flow type, which can be announced or unannounced. Basically, announced means at the scheduled appointment time, the client has to wake up and then send some kind of uplink indication to the AP saying that I have woken up, I am here, right? So you announce your arrival. Unannounced means it is assumed you are there. So if the AP sends frame, you are not there, that's your flaw, right? You are assumed to be there. So that is announced versus unannounced. So basically, these are the four parameters, which finally what AP puts in the TW2 accept message, that is what becomes final, okay? Once you have an agreement in place, right? Now, the client does not have to bake up every listen interval. TWT clients are exempt from that requirement. So they don't have to wake up every listen interval, check whether there are any buffered frames for me. You don't need to do that. You can just show up at your scheduled service period, which is your TWT time, right? Which is indicated here in this green, purple, teal colors. And how do you know whether there are frames for me, right? First thing is you send an uplink frame, right? And then you'll get an ACK. In that ACK itself, that more data bit can be used. So that more data bit is also a way to know whether there are buffered frames for it. So the client does not have to, the needless wake-ups to hear the beacons, that is not there. However, I would like to point out that you still have to wake up for the DTIM beacon. That is not exempted. because that is the only mechanism to receive the multicast and broadcast frames, right? So, and the second reason is for a client to stay in sync with the AP, it has to, the TSF update has to happen. So if you're not doing the TSF update, the client's time reference and the AP's time reference will go out of sync. So at least for that reason, you have to wake up for the DTM beacons. But here the idea is, since each client has this different service periods, there is no collisions, right? So that collision problem is gone. You are waking up and retrieving only frames meant for you, right? So it's the best thing that can happen. I mean, this is what Wi-Fi battery powered clients have been asking for a long time, right? So on paper, this is again on paper I'm showing, it looks excellent. So everybody should be using this, right? We should not even be thinking about any other, approach, right? So that's individual. Then there is also an option called broadcast readability. So, in individual, it's like, to set up this appointment time, right? You have to, send a request. Then AP says, no, I have that is already booked. So you'll go back and forth. If you have done setting up a meeting with lots of people, right, in your office, you'll know that some people will accept, some people will decline. They'll say, I have a conflict. All this problem. So there'll be lots of back and forth before you can arrive at an agreement. So to avoid that problem, the broadcast readability can be useful. So here how it works is, it is like, in a university courses are offered, they advertise a timetable, right? This course, this is the timetable, right? Monday, Friday, this time. Another course, Tuesday, Thursday, this time, right? So advice, they put the timetable, and that is broadcasted. Here in the case, that schedule is advertised in the beacon. So in every beacon, you will find what are all time slots are available. What is the schedule for each course, right? In this case, it is TWT ID. There is an ID for it, broadcast TWT ID. So these are the broadcast TWT ID. So ID 1, this is the schedule. ID 2, this is the schedule. So you as a client can decide which schedule works for you, right? Depending on your traffic pattern, you can decide, okay, this schedule works for me. You just go and send a TWT setup message again. Just say that I don't want to join this ID. And then the AP will say, okay, fine, you join, right? So there's no negotiation or like, okay, this is schedule I want, this is schedule I want. These are the schedules. You pick from one of this. That's it. So it's very simple, right? But the problem here is more than one client can end up in a service period, right? It's just like, multiple students enroll for a course. So you could have some collisions within them. So you're still not colliding with all other clients, but within them collisions can happen because more than one client could end up in the same ID, right? Like for example, here it is shown the HE station 1 and station 2, they have the same ID. Now there could be a station 3, that could be in a different ID, right? So which means that will have a different TWT time and a different wake interval and everything, right? So again, this is also great. I mean, it's not very bad. And by the way, there is something called broadcast TWT persistence that basically that schedule itself can change over time. So the AP has the flexibility to change that timetable over time, right? And there is a refresh. So you can say for so many beacon intervals, it is valid, and then you can refresh the schedule or change that schedule after a certain time, and that is anyway advertised in the beacon. So again, here the client doesn't have to wake up for every beacon, right? DTM beacons alone you wake up, that should be good enough. So anyway, so this also looks good on paper, right? Again, it looks a great idea, but let's come to the problem. Like why it is not used then, right? It seems so obvious that it should be used. So one word changes everything, right? In the standard. So what is that one word that changes everything? So if you're reading the standard, so there is some terminologies that you should know, that the words like shall, should, may, can, they have certain meanings in the IEEE terminology. So you need to know the meaning of all these things. Then only you will interpret it correctly. So shall is basically mandatory. You have to do it. Okay, it's mandatory requirements. A client or AP is required to do it. Should means it is a recommendation. It is only a recommendation. It's a preferred course of action. It's not, you don't have to do it. You can do another way. May means is permitted. This is one of the permitted option. Can means this is also a possibility. Okay. So basically anything other than shall is optional. Okay. So very simplified. Anything other than shall is optional. So the statement in the standard, I've just copy pasted that exact statement. It says a TWT requesting station should not transmit frames to the TWT responding station. Who's the responding station is the access point. Okay, and it should not transmit outside of the negotiated service period. So you should not transmit anything outside it, which means even if you have a negotiated agreement, you can go and transmit in some other client's TWT service period, which basically questions like, what is the meaning of this appointment, right? So basically, right, if you have a clinic, you book an appointment, right? And then you show up at the time, and then you are expecting the doctor to see you, but then the walk-ins are allowed. So walk-in comes in and then he takes your slot, right? So that's exactly what is happening. So then there's no incentive for a client to enter into an agreement. So other clients can transmit during your service period. It's not protected. And earlier generation clients, they don't even understand what is this TWT. So Wi-Fi 4 and earlier, they will just transmit during your service period. Clients don't prefer a fixed schedule. That is another thing, because they don't know what is that higher level traffic pattern, what app is going to be used when. And so basically, TWT benefit is mainly with the predictable traffic, like voice or video to calls. But so today individual TWT is mandatory for certification, but still it is unused in practice. So all clients support it, but still not used. Now, finally, just to close the thought, Wi-Fi 7 introduces restricted TWT with a slight modification onto it. So they introduced the shall clause. Now it is not should. So if you enter into a restricted TWT, you have to respect it. You cannot transmit during another TWT service period. But the catch there, the catch there is, the requirement says that it binds only Wi-Fi 7 clients that implement RTWT. So if, as a client, you don't declare support for restricted TWT, you don't have to honor any of this. Okay. So again, and RTWT is optional for certification. So again, we are in the same story one generation later. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Susinder. I think Susinder has come all the way, heading back tomorrow. So we'll give him more airtime because a lot of your fans are here. Yeah.
Yes.
So Vishnu, and then can you get the mic to Vijaya? Next mic, please. Yeah. No, you please finish and then.
Yeah. Hey, Susinder. So one question is like, we had a scenario where a coin-operated camera was there, and then we wanted to transmit at the will of the station, actually. And the one challenge we faced is we never able to dictate to the AB saying like, I can wake up, rather I put the simple question like, how many beacons I can avoid listening to, maximum number of period using
So the client, even today, client only determines the listen interval, okay? But the catch there is this DTIM period. So client anyway has to wake up for the DTIM period. So if you can choose a listen interval much higher than DTIM period, but still have to, so minimum of DTIM period and listen interval is basically what is in effect. So that is the limitation today. And even with TWT, you still don't, the DTIM period you still have to honor, because that's the only way broadcast frames can be delivered. But that aside, there is, you do have the option for this long periods of sleep, right? But that can be used if you are not interested in broadcast and multicast frames. So let's say you have a use case, you are not interested in broadcast and multicast frames at all, right? In that case, you can decide, I'm not going to listen for the DTIM beacon. I will just wake up, there's this extended sleep option is there. So you can go for that feature. Okay, so that it is possible. But the one catch there is, if the AP changes channel, you will not be aware of it. Then when you wake up, that AP may be in a different channel. That is one thing. Another thing is, you may lose sync with the beacon. The TBTT sync itself may be lost because you are not waking up to. So when you wake up, your TBTT will be off. which means when you wake up, you have to be prepared to listen for an entire 100 millisecond or big an interval to resync with the AP.
Yeah. So the issue of multiple stations having a possibility of colliding with each other in their even though there are declared intervals, right? Do you see any attempt in the standards to have a centralized control over, more tight control over when these stations, I mean, the shall and should that you just mentioned, right?
Yes. So far, there is no such effort I am aware of. That's why I made this presentation actually, because I wanted to raise awareness, because they need to know there is a feature like this. The Wi-Fi can be so much better. And so I think an honest conversation, transparent, honest, straightforward conversation has to happen between client vendors and the infrastructure players. They don't meet to each other, they don't talk to each other, they just talk to each other, because this is actually in the interest of the clients, right? And in fact, I think it is in the interest of the AP also to not waste a lot of time in this collision. So it's a win-win for both, okay? In fact, today, there is an option for an AP to tell all its clients that it has to use TWT. There is one bit in the beacon where it says you have to enter into TWT agreement, but it is not mandated, the standard today. So if you have a managed network where you have control over the clients also, then even today, all of this is possible, right? But today, that's not the reality. Clients just do whatever they want. So I think the convincing needs to happen with the client vendors. You have to talk to the client vendors. And what they are basically asking is, give us guarantee. We are okay to enter into agreement, but give us a guarantee when we wake up, our time, our appointment is being honored.
We can still take a question or two if there's anybody who wants to ask Susinder anything. Yeah, one more hand is up, please. Can you get the mic? If you have a question, please put up your hand. Second mic will come running to you.
Hi. Is it audible? Okay. So, but still, I understood the presentation. I understood, but still, the question is, in terms of deployments where you have mixed clients with various standards. Anyway, they are hidden out, so they will not come into it. They doesn't even know what is TWT. But if such a case exists, do we still enjoy the benefits of what TWT is going to offer or RTWT is going to offer? If that is a mixed environment where you have.
That is true. I mean, that is something we can't do anything about. If there is a large population of Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 5 and earlier, it is a problem. Okay, so that agreed. But 6 gigahertz, for example, there is an opportunity you can use it there, right? And I also, if you have a controlled environment where you know the clients. For example, I give you one example, right? There's a camera. Somebody asked a question about the camera, right? Cameras are usually controlled environment. You have their own gateway. They have only their clients will associate to that AP, right? So in those kinds of scenarios, TWT can definitely be helpful. So only those clients are going to associate. Like if you are talking about a conference place like this, definitely no, right? Because here this mix of so many different clients, no control, right? Yeah, that's backward compatibility thing we have to live with.
One more hand. Can we get mic? 2 hands. So.
Morning, sir. Morning, Susinder. Yeah. Thanks for the good presentation. It is actually, in a way of, it's understandable actually. But rather than, reading the OEM's text or online forum, it's very good. Appreciate that. This is a common question. Do you have a cumulative number? Maybe the target wait time. End of the day, it's about the battery life of an laptop or a mobile or whatever. You have any cumulative number that is savings? Anything available in any forum that these number of clients have saved this much battery kind of thing? You have any numbers in mind, or you have anything?
Numbers for what? Like how many clients support TWT?
The power consumption actually. The question.
Benefits.
The benefit.
You mean the TWT benefits?
Yeah, the number.
Okay, so That can be arrived at. I mean, I've seen some numbers, some demos, but in theory, the benefits are pretty obvious. Basically, if you have a lot of clients, which today most often is the case, definitely there will be benefit. But how much that quantifying number, I don't have, but maybe we can do a simulation. And then it's possible to arrive at. But I haven't actually seen any practical results being shared. But that's also another thing, I think, for the community. I look forward to seeing that kind of presentation where somebody shares realistic battery or energy consumption measurements with TWT. Yeah. But I've seen some data, but I can't share that number publicly, right? But I think companies should maybe take it up, and somebody should start at least lab environment publish these numbers, right? So people know the benefits. I think it will be greater good of the community.
I think one last question.
Hi, sir. So, is there any chance, like during the service period, if any DFS detection happens, so it can tamper that service period or something like that? Do we have?
So DFS channel switch announcement, right? That will trigger a channel switch announcement. So that client will see in the DTIM period. So that is how DFS and all is being, handled. Yeah.
I mean, during the TWT service period, so client will be expecting some buffered data, right?
Correct. So that it will be expecting, but that's the case, even today, even without TWT also, like you might have some buffered frames, DFS detected, then AP triggers channel. So AP doesn't change channel immediately, right? So it gives time for all the clients to be notified. All of them are aware. Typically, it's like 10 beacons out or 20 beacons out, then only you change the channel. But the DFS requires that you stop traffic, right? So and it gives a certain time period, right? So that is a challenge. So if you have some buffered frames already with the AP, that may not be delivered. Especially if you have 10 clients and each of them have 10 frames buffered, there's no way you can deliver all of them within the DFS requirements.
Thanks, Susinder. Susinder will be back on the panel, so maybe other questions can be written. So give him a hand, please. Thank you.